Okay, so yesterday we wrote a good deal. We wrote a total of 7,769 words about this basic question. Okay, so I'm going to reread the question. I would encourage you to first, definitely you should read / watch. You shouldn't read. There's no reading involved. Okay, you should just watch. You should watch the first episode of this. But this is the second episode, so 2 comes after 1. Read 1, watch 1, then come do this one. But with that said, I will explain the very quick overview of what's going on. Okay, so here's the prompt. 1,000 years ago, excuse me, how do you go? Let me restart. I'm sorry. 1,000 years in the future, everyone you know lives deep underground in a single interconnected city that spans all the way across the continental United States. The surface level was long ago abandoned after nuclear winter, overwhelming smog and marauding gangs of cannibals. On your 19th birthday, thereby making this a YA dystopia, you find an open elevator shaft that goes all the way up to level 000, the surface level. You've never been to the surface, but you decide to give it a shot, risking instant death by radiation by opening the door to the surface after climbing up 214 stories with nothing more than a rope and grappling hook. As you get to the top, you look down to see love interest 1, a goth underworlder like yourself named Soot, who, despite being terrified of heights, followed you all the way up, silently, because he is a silent smolder-er, on the basis that, like you, he is also an orphan who grew up in the cage, which is needlessly capitalized throughout the story, and was a sort of wrestling slave school / orphanage to prepare people for gladiatorial combat. When Soot helps you pry open the door to the surface, his pectoral muscles rippling, because of his cage training, you realize it's nothing like what you were told. It's a paradise. It's not overcrowded. The air is clean. There's a river. There's love interest 2, a jock-y, beautiful Richard, so named because he is rich. And you see the sun. It turns out that President Trump the 14th is keeping everyone in the Underworld down there to make room for the elite Surfaceworlders, and you, as an Underworlder and dissident, don't belong. But Richard, now made suddenly aware of the plight of the Underworld, hides you and Soot away in the attic of his mansion, where you plot revolution. How will you seek the fall of President Trump the 14th and the return of your people to the Surface World? Okay, so I'm just going to speed through the overarching stuff that's going on. Okay, so first let's just go through the different people who matter as members of the story. Okay, number 1. By the way, this whole thing is going to be I'm gonna say this is the time stamp of when you don't have to watch it anymore, right? Until it starts with the new stuff, right? Okay. Cool. So there's President Trump the 14th. He's a man. We decide that he's a man. He's just he's a dictator. Okay, that's what's relevant about him. That you don't care. He's also a really big fan of Floof. Floof is a dog. That's part of your escapades. Floof is like a mashy, crazy, scary dog from the cage, which is always capitalized. So that's Floof. There's also Richard's father. Floof, by the way, the reason that you had to go up and escape to the surface world was because Floof was going to die or at least you thought that Floof was going to die because Floof. There was a concern because he was going to be taken away from the cage, and you didn't know where he was going to go. But it turns out that actually where he was going to go is he's going to go to be the protector for President Trump the 14th. Okay, so therefore he wasn't actually under threat, but you thought he was under threat. So the whole thing started because you were just wrong. Richard's father, Richard is love interest 2. Obviously, Richard is the Surface World love interest. His father is Senator Krause Strauss. Okay, so he's a U.S. senator. Of the upper world. He's also responsible for the previous overthrow, so that the new leader of the Underworld came to power, okay? And this new leader of the Underworld is secretly your father, but no one knows that he's your father. It's a secret that he is your father. And so, as soon as you went up to this to the surface world, everyone was like, "Holy shit!" Right? Because the leadership of the cage, right? The leadership of the cage, who we'll get to in a moment. The leadership of the cage specifically. I'm sorry, I should clarify. We'll get to that component. But anyway, that's the father, and he's super important. That's Senator Krauss-Strauss. In terms of the cage leadership, okay, or excuse me, the Underworld leadership. The leader of the Underworld as a whole is Grigory Gorbachev. Grigory Gorbachev, okay, is your father, and he took control from Cordelia's father. Cordelia is the leader of the cage, okay. Now, so that's who Grigory Gorbachev is. Okay, he's a mob boss and he's pretty crazy. And also he's friends with Krauss-Strauss. Krauss-Strauss did this behind the back of President Trump the 14th. And so he's been pretending ever since that he's been working with President Trump the 14th. He's like one of the important sort of leaders within the government of President Trump the 14th. But he's actually like a dissident against President Trump the 14th, and he's been working against him sort of in like sinister ways, right? Anyway, then there's Madam Minister, okay, Cordelia Minister, Madam Minister, right? She is the daughter of the previous leader, but she turned on her own father in order to help Grigory Gorbachev take power over the totality of the Underworld, right? So that's her, and so she was the one, but she's been doing sort of sinister things, right? Because she was originally the second child. I didn't write this down. We're thinking about this as we go. The reason she did this whole thing, the reason she did this whole turning on her dad thing, was because she's the second child of her father, and he was going to give power to her older brother, and also because he was the one who gave her, she has a giant Zuko star, gave her the Zuko scar. Zuko is an Avatar the Last Airbender, obviously, okay? I shouldn't have to explain everything to you. You should be able to keep up, okay? Keep up, okay? It's necessary for you to be able to keep up, okay? So that's what's going on with her. So she hates her dad, and helped to overthrow him. Okay, so that's her, him. So that's her. Moving on forward, there's Brad Buttonsworth. Okay, Brad Buttonsworth is the fighting coach of the Children of the Cage. So in terms of the cage, there are two groups of people in the cage, right? So there's the two groups are the Children of the Cage and the invaders of the cage. Excuse me. Rather, they're called the Settlers of the Cage. Settlers of the Cage, right? So the Settlers of the Cage are people who were not born of the cage. You were born a child of the cage. You were born a slave, or as like a baby little orphan, right? Secretly, you're actually not an orphan at all. Your father is alive. Grigory Gorbachev is your father, right? But that's the secret, right? No one knows that except for, obviously, who knows it? Who knows it? None other than the person who planned the whole thing, Cordelia Minister, Madam Minister. Okay, she is sinister. That's why her name is Minister. Also, she has a cult. That's another reason that she's named Minister. Anyway, that's Brad Buttonsworth. He's kind of a loser. No one cares about him. So that's Brad Buttonsworth. Then you have the final person who matters is, of course, none other than Fire Machine. Okay, so Fire Machine was originally a settler of the cage. Why was he a settler of the cage? Because remember, a settler of the cage, he wasn't born into the cage. He rather moved to the cage. Why was he forced into the cage? Because he is a dissident. He's one of the people who started the original revolution, okay, against not Grigory Gorbachev, but rather, against Grigory Gorbachev. I should clarify that because there's two different people who have been in control. His revolution, we should write this down. His revolution was against Grigory Gorbachev. This is going to matter. So so like the way that I write these, I'm just writing, right? We just riff, okay? It's going quick. So we got to keep up. So we're going to be doing some edits while I'm going through the explanation of what's going on. So this is what's going on. Anyway, okay, cool. that's all of the stuff that I think you need to know about people. Now let's talk about what happened in last episode. Okay, so what happened in last episode was first you went to the surface world. You were like, holy shit, there's a surface world. This is crazy. Okay, holy crap, right? Oh, I should clarify. You didn't say holy shit. You said holy shucks, okay? Because you don't curse. This is very important. You don't curse in this, okay? Because it is a YA dystopia, okay? You do not curse. This is crucial. Okay, so you said holy shucks, right? Richard, okay, ends up saving your life a couple times. Specifically, he ends up saving Floof as well, which is crucial because Floof is the dog and we stand doggo. Then Richard goes to school because he's a rich guy and rich kids go to school. That's how rich people work. And he goes to the school. Also, his father is a dick to him. But after his father was a dick to him, then he goes to school and it's like, oh my God, he went to school, right? And when he comes back from school, meanwhile, you almost lost Floof. And it was a really scary moment where you almost lost Floof. And I was like, holy crap, you almost lost Floof. It was very scary. But then after that, you get home, okay? And when you get home, or Richard gets home rather, to his house, to his mansion, you're hiding in his attic, okay? When he gets home, he's like, guys, there is a nationwide manhunt right now because turns out that the son of or daughter, it's not clear, but the child of the dictator of the Underworld, Grigory Gorbachev, okay? The son of Grigory Gorbachev. He assumes it's the son because he's a sexist, okay? He assumes that it's the son, and so therefore he thinks that Soot is actually the son of Grigory Gorbachev. But he's wrong. The truth is that you are the son, rather, you are the daughter. Oh yeah, your name is Susan, by the way, because you're a Mary Sue. You are the daughter of Grigory Gorbachev. So anyway, as a result of this, okay. Also, this is also important. Spoilers. Again, you should really watch the first episode. If you didn't watch the first episode, you're a fucking loser. You should go watch the first episode. I don't know why you're not doing that. That's ridiculous, okay? But anyway, so then what happens is something very horrible, okay? Soot, this whole conversation that you're having between Richard, Soot, and you, Susan, okay? It's overheard by Richard's maid, okay? Now, when this happens, Soot sees this and slashes up and kills the maid because he's like, oh my God, no one can know about this whole horrible situation, right? This needs to be a secret. No one can know in the surface world that I am here. No one can know about any of this because Soot now thinks that he is the son of Grigory Gorbachev. He's wrong. You are the daughter of Grigory Gorbachev, but he thinks that he's the son of Grigory Gorbachev, and therefore he believes that in order to protect himself, he needs to make sure that this is kept a secret between the three of you. Arguably, perhaps even between just the two of you, because he doesn't really trust Richard, because he's only known Richard for about 2 days. Less than 2 days, actually. Now, that's the situation. Therefore, because of this, after he kills the maid, he's like, holy crap, we have to leave. So does Richard say this. Also, Richard says like, listen, we got to leave. Richard's in love with you. He's only been known you for 2 days, but you know what? Romeo and Juliet, move fast, okay? That's how things work, okay? So he's like, we need to go back to the Underworld, okay? We're continuing forward and onward. We need to go back to the Underworld, okay? Listen, I have to go through quickly, okay? This is 7,831 words, okay? You should have watched, it was a 3-hour episode, okay? You have to watch the first episode, okay? And I'm going to tell you, this is the Spark Notes, okay? It's the Spark Notes, okay? Anyway, so that's what's going on, okay? Okay, therefore, the three of you, Soot, Richard, and you, go back down. Now, we have to show you the map. Here's the map from yesterday, okay? So, here's the map. Okay, so you're up in this space. You're in the surface world up here. You're in the surface world right here, right? That's where you are, okay? This is the thing where you came up, okay? You climbed all the way up, now you're going to climb all the way back down. Okay, remember, Floof is heavy. He's a big-ass dog. He's a good doggo, but he's a big doggo. He is a fighting doggo. He's like a Burmese mountain dog. Okay, also, he took out a mountain lion earlier in the story. Okay, I forgot to tell you about that part. It is true. He did do that. Anyway, he's going down. You go back down, but the problem is there's 2 different places you're trying to go. Okay, what you want to do is you want to go over here. Okay, this is where the cage is. Why do you want to go to the cage? Because you have a little sister. She's not actually your physical, like actual literal little sister, but she's a little girl who you care about. She's 14 years old, which is a good age for her to be because it means the next book that we make of this, right? In the next book, she'll be like 16, which means that she's old enough to actually go on the adventure. But right now, she's a little baby. She's 14, so we still care about her, and she's a little like, and her name is Pout, okay? Because her name can't be Prim, but she needs to basically be Prim. So anyway, we're gonna go down here, right? And so you want to go back down to the cage, right? But Richard, okay, and Soot, okay, they want to come over here to the Underworld Palace, okay, right over here to the Underworld Palace. So what they do is they go down like 100 floors all the way down here to begin the arduous journey over to here to the Underworld Palace. Whereas you want to continue going forward over to here to the cage, capitalized. It has to be capitalized. I'm going to underline the C of the cage so we know that it's capitalized. It's important that we know that it's capitalized. Underlined, the cage, right? Capitalized C. So that's what's going on. So you have to split up from them. And you're furious at them. You're furious at the men. The men, okay, they're obsessed with the revolution. They're obsessed with the frickin' like, blah, 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 okay? Soot wants to be power, okay? Richard wants to be power. They want to be able to control the world and blah, 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 okay? Remember, Richard also in the situation, okay? Richard is in a situation where he knows earlier on in the story, okay, that he is not able to physically overpower you and Soot together because you are both, remember, you have been prepared in the cage, okay? So you could easily destroy him. You could easily defeat him. So he is kind of like being held a little bit low-key by captive by the two of you, mostly by Richard, who could definitely beat the crap out of both of you. Yes, that's what's going on, okay? So you go back to the cage, okay? So when you go back to the cage, okay, what happens, right? This is just all of the stuff that I've already explained to you, going forward. Okay, you go back to the Underworld, going forward. You have this side quest. You want to save Pout, going forward. Yes. Okay. Now, when you get back to the cage, you have to remember, okay? The cage, you are not supposed to be able to leave the cage, okay? And recently, okay, not only did you manage to escape from the cage, but you managed to escape from the cage, you and Soot and Floof, okay? Mostly Floof. Or at least at the time you thought mostly Floof, because Floof is a very powerful doggo. And the President Trump explicitly, not current President Trump, also he's not currently president, okay? This is very important. He should never become president again, so none of this happens, okay? If we don't elect Trump back into office, none of this will happen, okay? So it's very important that we don't let Trump back into office. Everyone should register to vote. It's very important that you register to vote. Anyway, we move forward. Okay, so what's going on is you have three possible people who could help you to survive and to like get Pout out of the cage, right? So the first option is Cordelia Minister. Now you don't know that Cordelia Minister knows that you specifically are the daughter of Grigory Gorbachev. Right? She knows that you are the daughter of Grigory Gorbachev, but you don't know that she knows that. But she does know that, but you don't know that she knows that. But you do know that she is not to be trusted because you believe that she started this international manhunt for Soot, even though actually it's an international manhunt for you, but you don't know that. And Cordelia Minister won't let anyone else know that either because she wants to specifically be the one that she is the one who finds you, rather than to allow Grigory Gorbachev to be the one to find it out because she wants to get credit for it, and she also specifically wants to be able to get you back under control because she wants to make sure that she is able to use you as a weapon in order to be building up her own prestige so she can take over the Underworld, right? That's her strategy. So Cordelia Minister, bad person to choose for this, okay? That's the first one. Brad, what's his name? We don't care about Brad, what's his name? Fuck, Frick. Brad, what's his name? Okay, frick him. Why frick him, not fuck him? Because we do not curse in YA dystopia. It is necessary. Going forward, the final option is Fire Machine, okay? He is the correct choice. Now, remember about Fire Machine. Fire Machine, okay, is the previous leader of the revolution against Grigory Gorbachev. Against your father. That's crazy. That's craziness. But you're going to end up working with your father's sworn enemy, not knowing, either one of you, that you are the daughter of Grigory Gorbachev. But you are the daughter of Grigory Gorbachev. So that's very important for the story, but neither of you know it yet. Okay, it's very important that neither of you know it. Anyway, so how are you going to convince him? So the first option would be sexual favors. That's a terrible option because obviously there can only be two love interests. You can have as much of a toxic relationship between the two of them and you, two of them and you as you want. That's fine. They can be incredibly toxic. See Twilight. See lots of different YA dystopias, but you cannot have a third person involved in that situation. It can only be two. That is how it works. Okay, that is how it works. Love triangles, not love rectangles. Remember, in terms of the triangle, there's also an undergirding gay, heterosexual, and homosexual tension between Richard and Soot. Okay, that's very important. They're going to do that as they're going off to begin their arduous journey. towards the Underworld palace. Okay, that's an important component of the story that we have to remember. There is a homosexual eroticism going on between them, but it will not be addressed. It will not be addressed. It is important that it never be addressed, even though it's definitely there, but we cannot address it. It's important that we don't address it. That's very important. Moving forward. Okay, cool. So now you get to the cage. Okay. Whoop! I made a mistake. I didn't mean to do that. Cool, it's back. You get to the cage. They're in the middle of class pack practice. So what you find is that a couple of things. Number one, Fire Machine, his quarters, they can literally oversee. It also implies. It implies. Hold up, I have to fix this. I'm sorry. So there's a grate in his chambers. There's this grate that you can literally look down on all of the practice in the cage of the people who are the children of the cage, which means that he, the person who is directly responsible for teaching people to fight against the people who are the children of the cage, he knows exactly what's going on in your practice. It implies that he knows that Fire Machine, this whole time, has known exactly how you've been training against his own frickin', not going to curse, people in your fights to the death. Exclamation point. Okay, so anyway, Fire Machine puts a dagger to your throat and a hand over your mouth, and he demands that you tell him everything. So you catch him up on everything very quickly over a period of like broad ballpark 20 minutes, right? 20 minutes and 57 seconds, ballpark. And that catches you up. Explaining takes you ballpark 20 minutes, 57 seconds to do. I should put that in bold so that I remember to put that in the notes for this. You're all caught up. You're all caught up. Fire Machine knows what's going down. Except he doesn't know that you, Susan, this whole thing is written in first person, are secretly the daughter of Grigory Gorbachev. Okay, so now, stop being bold. Why are you being bold? Thank you for not being bold. Now, the two of you must rescue Pout. Okay, so she's in the middle of practice right now. She's in fighting training, as she generally is. She also doesn't have her own room. None of the children of the cage have their own room. And therefore, it's going to be very difficult to figure out when she'll be alone so that you can grab her and get her to come with you on the arduous journey. Because remember, this whole thing, you're still down here. The only way that you can survive is if you're able to get back with Soot, find Soot somewhere, and find some way to begin the arduous journey, catch up with Soot in order to get to the Underworld Palace over here so that you can be with Grigory Gorbachev, who you think is Soot's father, but is actually secretly your father, right? So presumably it is true that you probably would be safe if you got there. That actually is true, even though you don't know why it's true, but it is true that you would be safe there. Actually, you would not need to get Soot with you in order to be safe there. Soot alone is probably not safe there, right? Very important to understand this. I need some chapsticks. Give me a moment. My lips are no longer chapped. Continuing forward. Okay. Now, she's in the middle of practice. Okay, so how do you find her? So cool. That's the first question. So how do you find her? How do you find her is the first question. The second question is, once you find her, you specifically, not find her, you know where she is. How do you get her? once you get to her, because obviously you know exactly where she is, get to her, you specifically need to be the one that she sees, because obviously she doesn't trust Fire Machine at all. And low key, you don't either. And high key, you probably shouldn't. Because the one thing that you know about him is that as soon as he finds Soot, he'll have a very specific goal set for Soot. Keep him for ransom, presumably, so that he can be sold off in order to fund the revolution against his father, which is a very different goal set than your goal set, which is either directly scootily pooping. I apologize to the Green Brothers if I misspelled that. Or it is to continue to engage in love triangle before eventually choosing Richard, the soft boy, period. So that's the situation that you want. So like, you need to remember that like this whole thing, it's like freaking Gollum, okay? Therefore, to Fire Machine, you are Gollum. You're some crazy guide who cannot be trusted to do the right thing in the end. Spoiler alert. In my defense, that was written literally like a Mickey Mouse ago. A Mickey Mouse ago means a time length long enough that it should probably be in the public domain, at least emotionally speaking. Cool. Therefore, that's what your situation with Fire Machine is, right? Okay. So, therefore, you specifically need to be the one to get to her, right? Okay. So that's your situation. Now, let's make a smaller map. We already have our big map of the broader society. We need to make a smaller map of the cage. Can you see things? Give me a second so you can see things. You can kind of see things right now. Okay. So let's move this thing over to here. Let's move the schmoopity boppity over to here. This is a good Sharpie. This Sharpie, I know it's a Sharpie, but it's a fat Sharpie. It's a big fat one. This is a skinny one. We want the skinny Sharpie. It's very important that we have the right Sharpie for this experience. Okay, cool. So right now, I don't know if you can hear me when I do that. So I'm going to put you over here so you can hear me better. Maybe this will work. Okay, right now, you've got, here are the basic layers. You're right here. You're up on this floor. Over here is the ladder. You have to go way up, right? You have to go way up this direction in order to go all the way upstairs to begin the arduous journey to the Underworld Palace. But that hasn't begun until you project, we're going to name this, Project Save Pout. Okay? Project Save Pout. That's what's going on. We're working on Project I can do things. Project Save Pout is what's going on. This is Project Save Pout, ladies and gentlemen. So right now you're over here. Okay? This right here is in terms of, remember, you're currently, where are you? You are where Fire Machine. Okay, you're in the Fire Machine location. his current his personal like quarters, right, which is directly above the cage itself, right? So this whole area. The whole area is called the cage, in that the whole area is like where people, learn to fight in the cage. But this specific area is the cage itself, where you actually do the fighting. Okay, cool. Now, past that, there's the place for the place where the children of the cage, but also the settlers of the cage live. So there's the settlers area, and then past that, there's the children of the cage. Okay, so that's the basic overview, right? That's the basic like design of where it is, right? In terms of the spacing, right? So there's the elevator all the way over here. Then there's the cage next to the elevator, pretty close to it. Then there's the settlers. Then there's the children of the cage way over on this area over here, right? In terms of that. Upstairs, above the cage itself is obviously there's fire machine. Then above the children of the cage, that's where your loser named Brian, I think his name is Brian. He's completely irrelevant. I don't actually care about him. That's where your loser is. We're going to name him Brian, but he's not important. So we're just going to name him Brian. If his name was Brian, not Brian earlier, then I'm sorry. Okay, I don't really care. And then above, obviously, the part where the settlers live, that's where none other than Brad. His name was Brad, not Brian. I'm going to change his name. I'm sorry. Brad. And then above the settlers is where Cordelia, the minister, lives. Okay, so this is the overview. Okay, that's the overview. Okay, that's where everyone lives. The little I'm sorry. I'm going to rename it so that it says that's where fire machine lives, above the cage. Fire machine, right? Okay. Okay. And so right now, she's in the cage, okay? Pout is in the cage. The cage is relatively close to these, the elevator shaft. Okay, there's no elevator in it, but there's an elevator shaft, which is how you can get back upstairs to get to the beginning of the arduous journey. This is the beginning. We haven't begun the arduous journey. That's how, once you get past the cage, you can go up here to begin the arduous journey, which is up like 50 floors, to get begin of the arduous journey over to the Underworld Palace. Okay? So in order to do that, you need to save Pout. Okay? Now, what are you going to do? Because obviously right here, we have to over here, between the cage, okay, between the cage and the elevator shaft, there's going to be guards with guns. Remember, you don't have guns, okay? You are not trained in guns. You are trained in hand-to-hand combat because this is gladiatorial combat, okay? And because you are a television extravaganza. You are not intended to actually be capable as a fighting force, okay? All of that is very important. Remember also that Fire Machine, okay, is being held himself vaguely as a captive, right? Because like he's free, right? Because he's managed to fight a significant number of battles and won a significant number of battles. Remember, against the children of the cage. So all of the people that you know and love, that you grew up with, right? He, as a settler of the cage, every single fight is between a settler of the cage and the children of the cage. And so therefore, he has only ever been fighting people that you know personally and love personally. Not necessarily love, but all the people that you know growing up, right? So therefore, he's deeply unpopular. Everyone hates him, including the guards hates him, right? The guards with guns, okay, very likely have friends, or at the very least have, you know, people that they vaguely care about in ways that are probably somewhat sinister, right? Who are the children of the cage, right? That is a necessary component of the story. We have to understand that as a facet of what's going on. This is important. Okay, therefore, you need, the only way to do this, okay, that I see, if we look at the situation, is for you to get past the guards with guns, or to manage to get her all the way back over here to the children of the cage section, or over here to the settlers of the cage section, so they can go upstairs to get to the minister and past Brad, all the way over to get to fire machines area, so that you can sneak out past here, get over here to the elevator shaft to climb back up, which would not require you to get past the guards, because the guards don't check over here, because the fire machine, even though he's technically vaguely a prisoner, low key, if he wanted to escape, he could totally escape. Okay, he's kind of a badass. Number one, he can beat the shit out of people. But number two, he has guns. And number three, he's like, listen, they don't think he's going to try to escape, because Cordelia has this complicated relationship. We have to talk about this. We have to expand on this, between the relationship between Cordelia, the Cordelia minister. We have to expand on this. Okay. This is going to be good. Okay. Expanding on the relationship between Cordelia minister and fire machine. Okay, so one, they both are not huge fans of Grigory Gorbachev. Fire machine doesn't necessarily realize that Cordelia was actually involved in the overthrow of her own father. That's something that she keeps secret from him. Okay? But also, that said, what Fire Machine does know about Cordelia Minister is that she hides a whole awful lot from him. And she did try to kind of kill him a bunch of times, every single time that she made him do a fight. That said, he won all of those fights. And he kind of had to. And none of them could have been easy, regardless of whether she was trying to help him, because she needed to make it look like she was trying to kill him. And when she, and by extension, Grigory Gorbachev, failed to kill him over and over, the majesty and power of his brand as a dissident grew every time. And so he is low-key, kind of, sort of, in her debt, in a sense, because she sort of, kind of did help him in a way, and he continues to be not dead, primarily as a result of her decisions of which children of the cage she made him fight. That said, he's not super a big fan of hers, but also he continues to work for her because he knows that if he were to leave, then Grigory Gorbachev, who now that he would cease to be on live television so regularly, could much more easily dispose of him. And also, he's regularly getting messages out to the public from this position of relative safety, for himself. It's a very strange position that he's in. And by leaving, he risks his ability to come back to it. So that's complicated. But if he believes, as he does, that Soot is the son of Grigory Gorbachev, even though actually you are, then it's probably worth it from a revolutionary perspective, even though it also likely increases the chances of his own personal death, albeit independence and genuine freedom in the interim. Okay, so that's his situation. Okay, because of this whole situation, what's her name? What's her first name? Cordelia Minister. Cordelia Minister doesn't really feel the need to be overly watching Fire Machine as he goes through his daily life. And she's low-key using him physically in terms of his location and his proximity to the elevator shaft. She's low-key using him as a kind of like sort of in-between before people are able to get to her. As a sort of in-between before people are able to get to her. Hold up. I remember something, which is Brad was someone's kid, and I don't remember who Brad's father is. Who is Brad's father? This is a good question because I want to remember this. Brad's father, Richard, no, we're still in Surfaceworld. Underworld, there we go. There's Grigory Gorbachev. Bunch of shit on Grigory Gorbachev. Cordelia Minister, bunch of shit on Cordelia Minister. Brad Buttonsworth. Okay. He's actually got no business being the fighting coach. He's simply the son of someone in leadership of the Underworld mob. Yes. He's not Grigory's son, but because Grigory's son that the world knows about, parentheses, not you, your half brother of his second wife, after your mother was murdered in the fighting, in the revolution, in the previous revolution. He's not Grigory's son, but because Grigory's son is very young, Brad is quite likely, if Grigory Gorbachev were to die sooner than later, to become one of the very real candidates to rule in his son's place up until the time that the actual heir became old enough to rule. Realistically, that's the kind of job that can often become permanent. Kill the baby. Yeah, I like that, because that would explain also why it is that Brad is all the way over here, even further away from potential danger, from the only direction that people can actually escape or come in through. So I actually like that a lot. So yes, Cordelia Minister is like using Fire Machine as her protection, but she's also protecting herself, Brad Buttonsworth, because Brad Buttonsworth is another one of her aces up her sleeve, because she's probably going to try to use Brad Buttonsworth if Grigory Gorbachev is killed, as one of her sort of strategies of trying to reinsert herself into the power position. I like this a lot. Okay, so that's who Brad is. Back down to the new stuff. Okay. Because this whole situation, Cordelia Minister doesn't really feel the need to be overly watching Fire Machine as he goes through his daily life, and she's low key using him as a sort of in between before people are able to get to her, or to Brad, one of her aces up the sleeve, along until recently, with you, the daughter of Grigory Gorbachev. Okay. Because you're already gone, Cordelia is busy. You matter a whole awful lot more than anyone else or anything else going on in the cage. She knows that. But no one else used to know that until very recently, where all of a sudden, everyone seems to know, albeit not who specifically, but that somehow there's a son or daughter of Grigory Gorbachev on the loose. The only way that the public could know that are if either Trump the 14th told everyone, because he'd been working closely with Cordelia Minister, or if Cordelia herself had shared the information. It doesn't serve her interests to have shared the info. It has to have been Trump the 14th who shared it. Right? Because it doesn't, it's not in her interest to keep it. She want to keep this on the DL. The reason he did so would have to have been because he'd lost respect and lost trust in Cordelia. This is a major problem for her. She needs to be the one, or rather her team needs to be her team needs to be the team that relocates you. She assumes that you're off towards your father and that you have already discovered that he's your dad. Therefore, she didn't look all the way up to the she didn't look all the way up to the surface world, because why would you go there? Why, if you knew about your dad, would you have gone there? The majority of her team actually went to begin the arduous journey over to the Underworld Palace, which is precisely where Soot and Richard are. Precisely where Richard and Soot have gone off to the same pathway, the arduous journey towards the Underworld Palace, where Grigory Gorbachev awaits. This is interesting. It's therefore, even though there's a lot of auspices of heightened security, there's actually less security. Less security now than when you left over the cage. Because they're all gone already, searching for you! Exclamation point. Cordelia herself is already on the same floor as Richard and Soot. It's going to be floor 100, obviously, because that's an easy floor for it to be. So it's going to be floor 100 because you're like 148. So you have to go back up 48 floors to get back up to her. So you're going to be exhausted by the time you get up there. But tis what it is. That's the next situation. First, we need to get a situation of getting you and your little sister, who's not actually your little sister, but is, emotionally your little sister, Pout, out. Okay? Pout needs to get out. That's what's got to happen first. Okay? So, because they're already gone searching for you, Cordelia herself is already on the floor with Richard and Soot. Therefore, on paper, right now, Brad is in charge of the entire cage. They're also being super secretive about the fact that they're missing you and Soot and Floof, right? Because the public cannot know, or else it may raise suspicion, because both of you are exactly the age that the daughter/son of Grigory Gorbachev would have to be for the timeline to match up. Parentheses, 19 years old. Comma, because this is a YA dystopia. Okay. This is good. Cool. So they're being super secretive about the fact that you're missing you and Soot and Floof. Okay. Therefore, because Brad is scared of Fire Machine's area is completely without guards. And the only guards are on the first floor of the cage, where they're keeping their slaves, parentheses, children of the cage, and their dissidents / revolutionaries, parentheses, political prisoners, not revolutionaries necessary, political prisoners, parentheses, settlers of the cage. Now, given this whole situation, all you got to do, if you look at the map, all you got to do is get from the settler area upstairs to the minister area, which is vacant, over to the fire machine area, which fire machines are on your side, out here. You completely miss the guards, and then you go back up, right? Because you don't have to go down, you have to go back up. And they're all down here. So if you're able to get from the up here in the minister area down to the settler area, and you're able to get past the settlers to get to the children, you're able to get Pout out to here, up to here, out to Schmoopity Boppity, you're all fine and dandy, right? Everything's good. Okay, given this situation, if you can sneak through Cordelia's vacant apartments upstairs and through the settlers of the cage quarters, you can get anyone from either not from either, because obviously in the cage itself, obviously there are still guards over here in the cage itself. So you can't get them from the cage itself. You have to get them over here from their quarters at night, from the children's quarters, from the children of the cage. I should clarify. When I say children of the cage, they're not actually all kids. Some of them are adults, right? I just want to be clear about that. Okay. Given this whole situation, if you can sneak through Cordelia's vacant apartments upstairs and through the settlers of the cage quarters, you can get anyone from the settlers of the cage, or even if you can sneak past them, the children of the cage quarters, if you've got a key, which fire machine does to both quarters. The only problem are one, the settlers of the cage, unsurprisingly, don't sleep well and are not likely to allow someone else to escape through their area without themselves trying to escape as well. Two, you specifically, as someone that the settlers of the cage, unlike Fire Machine, are very likely to try and capture or kill because they know that you escaped and they know what you look like, and they know that if they capture you and give you to Cordelia, they might very well themselves be given freedom. So you like, it's very dangerous for you to go down there, even though it's very easy for Fire Machine to go down there. But yet you specifically have to go to get into the children of the cage area, because Pout is not going to just follow along Fire Machine, because he's not exactly someone that historically children of the cage have trusted very much. Okay? Cool. I need more chapstick. It's crucial that there be more chapstick. I also need water. We are prepared. Okay. So that's the situation. You need to get there. The other problems are that in order to get from the settlers of the cage sleeping quarters up to Cordelia's over to fire machines up through the elevator shaft, you need to be able to climb up a rope because there's no staircase except through all the way over here in the back, right? Past both Brad and the children's area, but you'd have to get through Brad to do that. And Brad obviously also has soldiers in Brad's area. Or over here, which is also past the guards with guns. So either one of those choices with the staircases requires you to get past the guards with guns. You can't do that. So through the elevator shaft area itself, guards with guns, or through Brad's area, parentheses, guards with guns. You therefore need to be able to silently climb up a full flight of stairs on a rope. Pout, though strong for her age, is a 14-year-old girl. She is a baby. The next book, she will be /season. I guess this is season. This is an episode or is this a chapter? I don't know. The next book /season, she will be 16 and therefore treated physically as though she were a full-on adult with all the powers that come with being a cage superhero. Parentheses, they're not literally superhero. They're not literally superheroes, but you know, Katniss Everdeen type shit. With being a cage superhero. But for now, she's still a 14-year-old child with all the physical capacity of an actual 14-year-old child, albeit with some training. This means that Fire Machine is probably going to have to help her climb up the rope. Period. The rope is also in complete view of everyone inside of the bunk area of the settlers of the cage. Remember, there are situations where the settlers of the cage are not in the bunk area, but it's when they're training, which is to say, when Fire Machine is busy because he's in charge of training them. This is a problem because she can't do it on her own. Can you help? Like, yeah, for plot reasons, we're going to say yeah. Except that doesn't work at all for Fire Machine. Fire Machine needs you to only escape with him, because otherwise it doesn't serve his interests. Oh no. Fire Machine, realizing this situation before you, locks you in his room. Now you have a choice. You could scream, and Brad would hear you. But then you'd be a slave again. That's not good. You don't want that. But right now, you're a slave still, just in the upstairs section above the cage instead of in the cage itself. Just in the in Fire Machine's quarters above the cage instead of in the cage itself. Because he doesn't trust you. Because he doesn't trust you. This is a serious problem for you. You don't like it. Not one bit. You're going to try and escape. You're going to fail. You're going to be furious. You're going to be really mad at Soot and at Richard for having abandoned you. Absolutely furious. Oh, but then, would you look at that? Down comes Richard, not Soot. Down comes Richard from the latch, from the elevator shaft. He silently comes into the room. He's carrying Soot's knife. Dun, dun, dun! Period. Where is Soot? You demand. But also, you're incredibly excited to see him. And you're incredibly grateful that it's him, not almost literally anyone else it could possibly be. Because literally anyone else on Earth would want to make you a slave. Anyone else on Earth would want to make you a slave again. Richard, using the knife, Soot's knife, to help free you from your handcuffs. Those are words. From your handcuffs. He, using the knife, Soot's knife, to help free you from your handcuffs, refuses to elaborate on what's happened. He promises to tell you, but not now. Now, we need to help get Pout out of bondage. Okay. You go down with a rope in hand to the currently free settlers area, because the settlers area, all of the settlers are over in the cage practicing with Fire Machine. This guy is in the cage as well with the settlers, right? So you go through the settlers area and you go all the way over here to the children where Pout is currently sleeping. You go down with rope in hand to the settlers area, which is currently empty, and over to Pout's area in the area alone without Richard, because he cannot be seen because there are cameras in the cage and no one can know that he's been there. But you go alone down to the settlers area, climbing down from the ceiling. Risking your life in the process. Your life in the process. And you wake Pout from her slumber. But there are all the other people, all the other children of the cage. And you get her attention, flashing the knife, Soot's knife, to get the neon lights above to flash into her eyes while she sleeps, hiding at the door while you do so. You get her attention, and she runs to you, and she gives you a hug, and you tell her to be silent. And together, you go to the rope to try and climb out. And you get there. And then you're not strong enough to help lift her up and out. And you can hear the situation in the cage itself. And you can hear that their practice is coming to a close. And you know that any moment they'll be done. And any moment the situation will become dire as settlers of the cage, as Fire Machine himself returns to their quarters, returns to see the two of you, and all will be lost. This is the moment where Soft Boy goes hard. This is the moment where Richard climbs down, grabs Pout, climbs back up with her on his back, and you climb up after him. He is now known. He has been seen on the live feeds of the settlers' quarters. It's irreversible. His die is cast. He is now a man of the revolution. his father's life may now be in danger. He has chosen you, has chosen to protect Pout over himself. He is now the hella sexy, wowza, ooh-woo, various other PG-13 attributes of OMG boy boss mode, wowza, yas king behavior. Period. Okay. As soon as you begin the arduous climb back up to floor 100 with Richard and with Pout, you demand to know what happened to Soot. Pout is in the front. You are directly behind her. And Richard, who has now assumed the position of masculine protector, is in the rear, knowing full well that it's only a matter of time, and likely not even very much time before Fire Machine, realizing what has happened, sends his people after you. And also Brad and the Cordelia people, some of whom are already ahead of you and on floor 100, from whence Richard came. Richard tells you what happened. Okay. Throughout this, he hints at the homosexualism, but it's only hints. He never comes out, pun intended, and says it. But obviously, Richard and Soot are having fifis for each other, not just you. That is just a reality of the situation, but it's not going to be addressed. Anywhere in the entire story, it will never be addressed, okay? But it's definitely true. But it will never be addressed. But it's definitely true. But it will never be addressed. Okay, so that's what's going on there. That's the first thing that's going on. As soon as they got out on the 100th floor, floor 100. That's different. Floor 100. There was a surprise attack by Cordelia's men. They captured Soot, and Richard only barely was able to escape. He hid for hours on floor 114. Alone, scared. No, I'm sorry. He didn't. They almost captured. They were almost captured. Captured. And together, Richard and Soot only barely were able to escape going back up to floor 87. They hid for hours together. On floor 87. Alone, scared, homosexually. And they stayed there for as long as they could, hoping to wait out the loud, raucous activity of Cordelia's men as they searched for the two of them. They realized eventually that floor 100, though the same floor as the Underworld Palace, it's not the only way to get there. There's other paths from other floors that go in that same direction, and there are other elevator shafts elsewhere in the underground bunker in the Underworld. They're the same floor as the Underworld. The Underworld Palace isn't the only pathway to get there. So they began to run together to try and find some other route from floor 87 over. Then Soot tripped and fell. He fell not just over, but down a secret elevator shaft that had been hidden between a fake ceiling and a fake floor. Richard didn't know how far he'd fallen, but he heard whoops of excitement from Cordelia's men. And so, fearing that if he even poked his head down to see what had happened, that he would be shot at, he ran back to the same elevator shaft from whence he came, from whence you came, and he tried to come to find you because he loves you, in parentheses, because he loves you, and because he needed help saving Soot. He got the knife earlier than this because Soot had given it to him after Soot had broken his leg. Yeah, because then he can't climb. Broken his leg, or he can climb, but it's harder for him to climb, and he climbs slowly. After Soot had broken his leg in the first fight, when they were, what's it called? When they were surprise attacked by Cordelia's men on floor 100. Cool. So that's the situation. This fact that Soot gave Richard his knife, it's representative of their homosexuality, and their trust in each other, their trust in one another, period. Okay, cool. This is good. We need more water. It's important to have a massive thing of water. You can't have a small thing of water. You need to have a massive vat of water at all times, okay? It's very important. Okay. Onward and forward. This is good. Okay. This fact that Soot gave Richard his knife is representative of their homosexuality and their trust in one another. Good. This is good. You are terrified for Soot. You're grateful to Richard for trying to help. But you're also terrified for Richard, who now, having been seen on the live feeds, having now been made a Underworld-wide celebrity in an instant. He's in deep doo-doo to a degree that you don't even know if Richard fully comprehends yet. But he's in that doo-doo for you, and that's hot. Meanwhile, Pout is third wheeling hard. It's a little awkward. Also, Pout is kind of upset that you didn't try and save more of the children of the cage. Why just her when there's literally hundreds of other innocent people who are children of the cage? All of them presumably not going to have a good life, or even necessarily a particularly long one. Pout is fully right about that, just to clarify. Note, Pout is fully correct about that. But you didn't move as quickly as you could have, because originally Richard hadn't wanted to show his face, which is ridiculous, and Pout is kind of annoyed at him for it, because oh no, the senator's son is going to have to risk his life? That must be super frickin', no cursing, hard for him. Because I, Pout, a literal child, have never once been made to risk my life, ... Frick you, Richard. You dick. I can say dick here. You dick. I can say dick here because it's not a curse, because it's his name. in parentheses. Okay, cool. And yeah, Pout is fully right about that. And you did sort of like high key abandon all of those other children of the cage, and they're going to be kind of mad at you. The other children of the cage going forward, going to be a little mad at you because of the fact you didn't rescue them. Oh no. Shockingly, not even remotely surprising, here comes the soldiers of the cage, led by Fire Machine himself, to try and capture you. Because he wants to use you as bait, wants to use you both, and more importantly, he thinks at least he thinks, Soot as bait for Grigory Gorbachev, the dictator of the Underworld. Because of the fact that Fire Machine wants to use you as bait, he can't afford to shoot at you. But he does know, because it's an elevator shaft, exactly where you are, albeit it's difficult to decipher exactly what floor, just that you're up a good way from him and the rest of his men. He therefore, knowing that that the men following you are much faster than specifically Pout, the 14-year-old child who next book will be a 16-year-old and therefore treated as a fully grown adult. As a fully grown adult, physically speaking. For all intents and purposes. All intents and purposes, you get off on floor 116, far before where you believe Soot is, on floor 100. Which you believe he's alive on, even though that's 13 floors below where he fell from, because you think that because Richard thinks, given it was a trap to capture them, not kill them, that it's probably just a bunch of cushions down there. And he's probably alive. Still alive. At the very least, he was screaming in pain when he landed. Why can't I spell cushions? Dude, words are ridiculous. Do you ever think about how words are ridiculous? Cushions with a... Cushions? Dude, I don't know. I don't care. I do kind of care. Cushions. What a ridiculous word. I don't know why words are like that. That it's probably just a bunch of cushions down there, and he's probably still alive. And they're very And at the very least, so he was alive when Richard left him. Okay. So now you're still 16 floors below where you want to be, where Soot is. Where you want to be, where Soot is. Okay. The plan. Okay. A. You need to hide from both Fire Machine and Cordelia. Ideally, you want for Fire Machine and Cordelia to fight each other. Not work together. They're unlikely to work together. Their goal sets are completely different, right? Because Fire Machine wants to use you as bait, so does Cordelia, but for different power groups. They're not the same resistance organizations. That said, their respective soldiers, their rank and file, know each other. They've all been working in the cage, and they all are there at least partially as a result of their respect for Cordelia over and above Fire Machine. Does Fire Machine have truly loyal men? Yes. But these aren't them. These are the cage soldiers, not the resistance soldiers. It's a different group. So Fire Machine, therefore, Fire Machine specifically really needs to avoid direct conflict with Cordelia if he's going to maintain conflict or even recognition that she's there with Cordelia, if he's going to maintain his power over his own men in this situation. So that's interesting. Okay, so there's that. Okay, more water. It's important that we stay hydrated. It's always important to stay hydrated. Therefore, Fire Machine specifically really needs to avoid direct conflict. Okay, so that's Fire Machine situation. Okay. But you want them to fight together. But you want them to meet because chaos would ensue. Chains of command would change. It would be ridiculous. You might be able to slip Soot out in the chaos of the situation. Meanwhile, okay, Cordelia knows that you, not Soot, are the actual goal. Her ranking of importance, she obviously watched the live feed, has people who saw the live feed. are as follows. 1, you, daughter of Grigory Gorbachev. You're the number 1. Then comes Richard, son of none other than Senator Krauss Strauss. Then comes Soot, one of her better fighters. Then comes Pout, one of her worst fighters, completely replaceable. Right? Okay, so that's Cordelia's. Fire Machine's ranking of important goes Soot. He thinks the son of Grigory Gorbachev. You, he thinks the one who can locate the son of Grigory Gorbachev. Then goes Richard. He doesn't necessarily have as good and immediate information flow as does Cordelia. Because right now, he's not in an equivalent power position. So he doesn't realize that he's Senator Krauss's son. Strauss's son. And then comes Pout, one of Cordelia's lesser children of the cage. Fighters, completely replaceable. Replaceable. No one cares about Pout except for you. So that's Fire Machine's goal set. And then we've got your goal set, which is you think Soot. Your number 1 is Pout, right? You care about Pout more than anyone. You care about Pout more than anyone. You want her to be able to be free and ideally to live in the surface world. After that comes Floof. You care a lot about that doggo who apparently ran off in the first fight, and neither Richard nor Soot tried to rescue him, which, like, dude, that's not chill. That's your doggo. No, worse than that. That's Pout's doggo. You need to save Pout. Save Pout. And part of saving Pout is to protect Floof. Period. Very important to protect Floof. Actually, no, I'm sorry. No, to begin with this, you ran away with Floof and not Pout. Obviously, Floof is more important than Pout. I'm sorry, that was ridiculous. It was very silly, and I'm sorry. Yeah, your number 1 is Floof. No one else gives a shit about Floof. It's not even in the rankings of anyone else. But for you, Floof matters more than Pout. Floof, kill on sight for most of the other people. Kill on sight. Cordelia, Floof, kill on sight. Yeah. That's not how you spell sight. It's the other sight. Actually, to be fair, both of those sites would make sense. Sight as in, like, the location and also site, as you can see them. Whatever. Okay. Pout, you care about Pout more than anyone. You want her to be able to be free, ideally to live in the surface world, and with Floof, with you and Floof. Okay, so that's Pout. Then after that comes Soot. You think he's the son of Grigory Gorbachev, and he's therefore quite useful in trying to get security for you, Floof, and Pout. But also, he's one of the love triangle, but also low-key, right now, you're more crushing on Richard because he came and saved you from slavery and also saved Pout. And so that's really cool. And chill, and you're grateful. And then after that comes Richard, even though you ooh-woo like him more, he matters less to your own ends and to Floof/Pout. So that's your situation. Okay. Given all of this, you're still currently below the arduous journey area on floor 100. You're down here on floor 116, down in the schmoopity-boppity over here, right? And then still over here, still climbing up behind you, up here on the elevator shaft for the boppity-boppity, is where you still have Fire Machine and his people, and above you is where Cordelia and Soot are. Okay. So you're trying to get Floof, who's on 100, and also Soot, who was on 100. And that sort of situation. And Richard is basically on board with that as a strategy, although he probably cares about about Soot a little bit more than he cares about Floof. Richard, chill to do whatever you want, except he probably cares homosexuality as well as strategy for his own security. About Soot a little more than he cares about Floof, the doggo. But he would never admit that to you because you and Pout are doggo coded, period. And he, Richard, is a soft boy, period. Okay, that's the situation. Now, therefore, your ultimate goal needs to be to get to floor 100, where Doggo and Richard, and Soot are being held. But you can't go just directly up the elevator shaft from whence you came, because right now, that's where, unsurprisingly, Fire Machine continues to ascend, period. Parentheses, with his men. And parentheses, period. So you need to find a different strategy of how to get there. Okay. You're going to try and find the other shaft that Richard and that Soot fell down because that's the most recent location that you know he was at. Obviously, that shaft doesn't go all the way up because there's a massive pile of mattresses or whatever it was to try and use that shaft as a landing pad to capture people on the way up, on the way down to floor 100, where obviously they're trying to catch you slash Soot, but secretly you didn't realize this. You still don't know this. Don't know this. Specifically, you. Period. So that's what's going on there. Need more water. Crucial to have more water. We need more water. There needs to be water in my mouth. There's now water. I drank it. Okay. Obviously, that shaft doesn't go all the way up, specifically you. But it goes to floor 101. Just below floor 100. Actually, no, I'm sorry, floor 102 with a full floor devoted entirely to cushioning the fall. These trapdoor elevator shafts have been set up by Cordelia since you escaped up to the surface at the beginning of the story, all the way up to floor 80. 20 full stories. Stories fall. So there needs to be a lot of cushioning. Period. Okay, this is good. Cool. Okay, you find it. You climb up. You, Pout, and Richard to floor 102. Remember, this is important. These are working floors, right? Yeah, they're working floors. People live here. People live here. They work here. Stuff is going on. You're running through the hallways, but as you do, people are seeing you. And increasingly, as more and more people see the news of the escaped people from the live feeds of the cage, you're getting recognized. Das not good! Exclamation point. Das very not good! Exclamation point. So yeah, how does that manifest? This is interesting. Okay, so because you're becoming famous, right? Because everyone saw, when you first escaped, it was Cordelia kept that a secret, right? But now, it's very much no longer a secret because You literally climbed through the ceiling, and on a live stream, everyone saw, like it's happening on, BB live streams, our Big Brother live streams, right? Everyone's seeing this shit, and they're all like, "Oh my god, what's going on? How the hell is this background character, not very important kid from Child of the Cage? How is this Child of the Cage able to escape? Who the hell is this other kid? Oh my god, he's the son of a senator. Holy shit. Oh my god. Wait, no, that's not even true. No, I'm sorry. That's not true because we're still in the Underworld. The Underworld also doesn't have a record of who the heck Richard even is. Remember, he's from the Surface World. Yes, in the Surface World, his father is incredibly well known and popular, is one of the most important senators. But we're in the Underworld, my guy. This is not the Surface World. The Cage is one of 4 different channels across the entire Underworld that's even permitted to be viewed. Yes, other things exist, but it's been 1,000 years since IRL life. So the few internet devices that remain, most of them have long been confiscated from the general public. They're extremely illegal. The rank and file have no idea who the heck this Richard guy even is. Whereas in the Surface World, you're not even the main story. The main story, Richard is. And more than that, his father is. We'll get to how this affects his father's career down the line, period. This is pretty intense. Ladies and gentlemen, this is pretty intense. Okay? So that's anyway. So yeah, it's not good that you're famous. It's not good at all that you're famous. Everyone knows who you are, but it's not a good thing that everyone knows who you are. It's not good at all. Okay? So that's what's going on there. More water, more water, more water. I'm really sorry. I've been speaking for a while. So you need to stay hydrated when you're speaking for a while. Okay. We'll get to know this effect his father, how this affects his father's career down the line. Okay, but it's not good. You're very famous. As a result, there's an increasing number of random people who are going to probably help when Fire Machine comes after you. Maybe. Remember, Fire Machine is not popular necessarily with the general public. He's been called a terrorist, parentheses, he is one, albeit against a horrible government. And he's also had this job for a good long while at this point as the trainer for the settlers of the Cage, which is to say, the people who are supposed to lose in those fights. But sometimes they win, which means that a lot of people have lost money on fights because of Fire Machine. And it means that a lot of people hate him. Like a lot. But also he's got guns. Also, he's with a bunch of soldiers from the cage who've got guns. That's important to remember. When you've got a gun, you are in charge. Let's remember. Let's put that down. When, period, you've, period, got, period, a, period, gun, period, you, oh, this should be caps locks. You are in charge, period. That's how guns work. That's how guns work, period. Okay, so that's sort of that situation, right? There's this weird like thing going on behind you as you're running through the hallways of these like live floors, right? Where people are aware that you're there. They're not able to live stream it. No one is able to take pictures of you obviously, because those are very illegal. And obviously the floors are no longer bugged below the surface, even though they are often in the surface world, because increasingly the Underworld government under Grigory Gorbachev, your father, have been working exceedingly hard to get rid of the spying apparatus that the surface world has over the Underworld, so that he can build up comparative independence from them. So that's sort of his goal set, right? Why doesn't Grigory Gorbachev begin putting up cameras of his own? Because he doesn't have the supply lines required to maintain them, because his is a comparatively impoverished, specifically technologically impoverished nation to that of the surface world. Yes, this is good. Remember, there are three surface world nations. All of them, like in 1984, all of them have underworlds respectively, albeit most of the both of the other underworlds are not cohesively under a single leader like that of the Americas under Grigory Gorbachev, who only recently achieved this in your lifetime, 19 years, because this is a YA dystopia, period. So this is very important, right? His trade is limited right now, incredibly limited, right? Because he can't do planes or shit. He can't do trains even. He can't do any of that. There's massive ocean between his, system of hundreds of floors of Underworld across the Americas, and the one that's happening in Eurasia and the one that's happening in Africa / the Middle East. Those are the three basic ones. There's the Eurasia component. We should do a map of the world. 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 Map. I'm the 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 map. Okay, let's show the map. Map of the world. 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 Give me a second. We have to aim you back down. Okay, so you've got your Europe. Got your little Italy, whatever, schmoopity boppity. Then you've got your Middle East. Then you've got your Africa. You just go schmoopity boop. Then you've got your Asia. Okay. Look, okay? I'm not a map maker, okay? Not everyone's Johnny Harris, okay? Then you've got your Americas, okay? You've got, whoa, I'm America. Whoa, I'm America. Whoa. Then you've got your Americas over here, okay? Then you've got your little Cuba, okay? You got a little Madagascar. You got a little Greenland, okay? You got a little Finland, whatever. Schmoopity boppity. You got your little United Kingdom, whatever. This is your map of the world, okay? I'm not saying it's great, but this is what we're going to do, okay? This is the map of the world, okay? Basic overview. This is Americas. And that's also Americas. Okay, so Americas, right? The Americas are the Americas. Okay, they remain the Americas. Okay, that's what it is. And that's all one massive underground network. That's underground. Can I use this pen so there's going to work? Is this going to work? Can you see if I use a pen? Let's see if you can see that. Can you see that? You can see that. Haha, that's wonderful. Underground America equals Grigory Gorbachev. Above equals President Trump the 14th. Okay, you can see that? You can see that. It looks so good. So that's what's going on in the Americas. Then you have Eurasia. Eurasia. But it's split up into various factions of like the places where there are like, different people who are in control over it in terms of the Underworld, right? So there's like these 4 separate factions within Eurasia. Does that make sense? You can see those little 4 little factions. There's one in Europe. There's one in Northern Asia. There's one in like Middle Asia. There's one in Southeast Asia. Then you've got like the Middle East is controlled by a group. Middle East, I should just do lines in terms of, these are the lines in terms of like the above ground, right? So you've got this, this is one group. Then you've got Africa and Australia / New Zealand is also under the same African control as well. But also that's obviously its own separate underworld. And then there's a Middle East section, which is controlled by one. And then there's one like in Northern Africa. And so, yeah, the point is, what we're seeing here in this thingamaboober that's relevant to you is that there's the Grigory Gorbachev is the most important and powerful person of the Underworld. And he's only been able to accomplish that because of a very specific strategy, which is to be North Korea, basically, right? To be the intensely, like, no one is able to know anything that's going on. Everything is a secret. And it's only been working for a very short period of time. That's why he's only been around in control for 19 years, because this is a YA dystopia. He has achieved this in your lifetime, 19 years, because this is a YA dystopia. Okay, that's what's going on. We know. We understand. Everything is simple. We understand what's going on. It's all very simple. More water. Glorious. Okay, cool. No one is able to take pictures of you obviously, because those are illegal, very illegal, but also because obviously, blah, 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 blah. Cool. That's what's going on in terms of cameras. Okay. Therefore, you're this famous entity. Grigory Gorbachev doesn't know for sure if you or if Soot are his kid, but he's pretty sure at this point that one of the two of you, and he's a sexist, so he thinks it's probably Soot is his kid. Period. It's important to note that Grigory Gorbachev is a sexist is an important component of his character development. I have to sneeze. I sneezed. Okay. It's important component of his character development. Okay. He is a sexist. Your father is a sexist. Cool. Okay. Onward and forward. That's all true. That's all going on. As a result, there's an increasing number of random people who are probably coming after it. Maybe. Okay, cool. Yes. Now, how are you going to get up to... so you're on floor 102. Okay. We can put this aside. We need another little map thing. Do we need another little map thing? Or can we just talk about this? I think we need another little map thing. I support little map things. Listen, I know people are gonna be like, "Oh, Quibbles, you're wasting paper towels and blah 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 blah." You, okay, are stupid. You should feel stupid about yourself. Okay, that's dumb. You're dumb, and you should feel bad about yourself. Paper is very important. Okay, we need to be able to draw things on paper. Paper is very important. Okay, continuing onward and forward. So right now, you're on floor 102. No, we can use this. No, we need to use the Sharpie. I think the Sharpie is better. I think. Okay, so here's a question, right? You should drop this in the comment section below. Okay, this is a question for you. I don't know. Should I be using pens or should I be using Sharpies? And when I'm making these maps, right? This is very important because I feel like I do this in most episodes. I end up like drawing out some important maps of something, right? So when I do that, are you team pen or are you team Sharpie? You need to answer this question. When I'm writing words, I think I'm mostly team pen. But should I exclusively use the pen just in general? Or should I also use a joint, compound of both pen and Sharpie dependent on the task, right? This is very important. You need to help me figure it out. I can't answer this. You have to be the one to answer this, okay? I care immensely about your opinion. It's very important to me to know what you think. Okay. You are on 102. Soot and Floof, the doggo, are on 100. Okay? So 100 has, right now, that's where Floof is, and Soot, and Cordelia, and most of Cordelia's men. Okay? So that's a real problem. That is a real problem for you because you are down here on 102 and they're up here on 100. Okay, so how are you going to remedy this? How are you going to remedy this? Okay. Pathways up to 102. That's the real question. Pathways to floor 100 from where you are, parentheses, floor 102. There's the one you know for sure, the elevator shaft of the cage itself, which is where you came from, but it's also presumably still where a bunch of, at the very least, fire machines men, and also potentially Cordelia ministers men / cult. Remember, she has a cult. That might come up later. She does have a cult. That's important. Cordelia ministers men / cult are also. So you don't want to do this one. You could just keep looking for an elevator shaft. You could ask the local population how they get upstairs. There's public stairwells, which are, of course, crawling even in normal times with soldiers. Remember, you don't know jack crap, no cursing, parentheses, no cursing, about how anything works outside of the cage because you've lived your entire life in the cage, as did Pout. And Richard, meanwhile, grew up in the surface world. He doesn't understand this shit either. Understand this shoot, parentheses, no cursing, either, exclamation point. You need a guide, a genuine IRL, real person. They know what's going on. They know where stuff is guide. How to find a guide. Option 1, grab a random fan you don't really know anything about. You know nothing about. And be like, hey, tell me all the stuff. Where are the things? You could do that. That's one option. Another option is try and kidnap someone and force them to work for you. Another option is try and convince someone enterprising that you are actually Grigory Gorbachev's daughter, even though that might not be true, even though you still think that that's not true, even though it is true. This seems like the most interesting option. We're going with this one. Period. We stand. glorious. Okay. Cool. I don't like winter. I don't like that my nose is all drizzly and it's like there's like wet yuck outside and there's like sleet and there's like snow. I don't like it. Okay? I'm a t-shirt boy. Okay? Sometimes I like sweater weather. I'm okay with fall. I support the concept of fall. I'm okay with the concept of spring. Winter, someone needs, this is very important, to globally warm things, okay? I'm writing this down. Snow is bad. I don't like snow. This has nothing to do with the episode or the plot, but I oppose the concept of winter, period. Therefore, I belong in the Underworld, not the Surface World, because I am a man who is opposed to the elements. Except I do like sun. Like the sun. So I don't know. Anyway, that had nothing to do with anything. Okay, so I think you're going to do this. You're going to try to find someone enterprising and convince them that you're Grigory Gorbachev's daughter. Because that would obviously give you a lot of power over them, and they would probably be willing to do quite a bit to protect you if they believe that. The question is, how do you find someone when you are in the middle of this run? You're like, you got to keep on the run. You're literally running right now, okay? And you are trying to find a place to hide, and you are trying to find blah, 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 and meanwhile, you're also trying to look for Soot, and blah, 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 blah. There's a lot going on right now, okay? And floof. Floof, okay, matters more than Soot, okay? Soot, like, has been your love interest for, like, years at this point, right? But floof is Pout's doggo. Nothing matters more. I need to go full screen on my face. Nothing matters more than Pout's doggo. Nothing matters more than Floof. Floof is the most important character in this entire story. We stan Floof. Look at me. We stan Floof. Continuing onward and forward. Okay, so you need to find this guy. You need to find some dude to be your guide. Okay, how to find someone. Go to a bar, right? That's the Lone Star. Not Lone Star. That's from Spaceballs. What's his actual name? Han Solo's route. I know words. Han Solo route. Definitely not Lone Star from Spaceballs. That's a completely different guy. And I remember my Star Wars lore. Period. Why can't I spell words? It's ridiculous. I hate words. Words are the worst. Okay, go to a bar. That's one option. What else can you do? You can go to a barracks. That's very dangerous. Because obviously you don't know if this is an area controlled by your father / by what you think is actually not your father, but Soot's father, blah, blah. I'm not rehashing. Or if it's under Cordelia's control, even if it's under Grigory Gorbachev's control, that's still a problem. Because if they don't think you're his kid, then you might still be sent back to the cage. And for sure, 100%, everyone knows that Pout is definitely not Grigory Gorbachev's daughter. So that's the situation there. Okay. Okay, this is interesting. This is very interesting. Okay, so go to a bar, go to a barracks. What are other options? Where do mobsters go? Mobsters go to bars, right? That's where mobsters go. I know a lot about the Underworld, as you know. I'm actually a very hardened man, you know? I'm not a soft boy. I'm a hard boy. I'm a hard boy. Your loving and beloved narrator. Okay. No, I think you're just going to go to a bar. I think that's the right way to do it. Okay, so how do you find a bar? How to find a bar? Question mark. Obviously, in Grigory Gorbachev's Underworld, there's been a crackdown on non-official, the ones that don't pay him ransom/taxes, which are very different. Obviously. Bars. Therefore, if you want to find a badass who's low-key connected, you need to find one of the secret bars. The secret bars, period. Where to find a secret bar. 1, it's a secret. You're not supposed to know. As some random YA dystopia 19-year-old girl. Period. 2, if, however, you were not a YA dystopia 19-year-old girl, but were rather just some random, not famous 19-year-old girl runaway, well, now all of a sudden, you don't need to find the Underworld. It's only a matter of time until the Underworld finds you. Period. Note, this must be approached delicately because we know what we're implying, but it's a YA dystopia, which means that we can for sure imply it, see all of the people like Finnick in the Capitol after winning the Hunger Games, who are low-key prostitutes / forced into that by President Snow. But we'd never actually say that word for word in the actual books themselves. It's just an undertone that those who know understand is being done. Okay. Now, this is where we get into an interesting question. Okay. Is this going to be your idea, or is this going to be something that Richard realizes is a good idea and doesn't tell you is the thing that he's going to do? Or is it going to be something that is going to be a complete mistake that just happens, and as a result of it happening, that's how you find your guide? I like the idea of you doing this intentionally. I think you should be consciously doing this as an intentional decision, albeit one that is implied, even though you are the character from whose perspective? I don't know. We're going with whose perspective this whole narrative is being written from. Yeah. That feels right. Okay. If, however, you were not a YA dystopia, but you're just some random 19-year-old girl, you could for sure do it. Okay. Therefore, what's going to happen is that you and Richard and Pout are going to run into a random woman's house, change your clothes so that you can't be found by the people who saw you on television / the live stream of the cage quite as easily. And then you're going to begin to try and figure out a way to make your faces less recognizable. I am just going to move this above because it's not the one we're going with, but we need to keep it as a possibility of a thing that we didn't go to. Okay. Glorious. Ladies and gentlemen, this is working. Okay, this is going to work. Okay. Therefore, what's going to happen is that you and Richard and Pout are going to run into a random woman's house, change your clothes so that you can't be found by the people who saw you on television, the live stream of the cage, quite as easily, and then you're going to begin to try and figure out a way to make your face less recognizable. How to make your face less recognizable. 1. Make yourself ugly and smelly and gross. Throw literal crap, no cursing, onto your bodies, specifically your face, or wear really baggy, gross clothing, etc. This is a YA dystopia. You must, along with both Richard and Soot, be incredibly attractive at all times. This is therefore not a real option. Period. Okay, so you can't do that one. Therefore, the only other options are to we plot armor it, and we pretend that you wouldn't be recognized, even though obviously you would. Admittedly, maybe not everyone has a television, but also, you know who would? The Underworld. The mob, not the Underworld. The mob / cartel / dudes at the secret bar. So that's another option we might end up going with. A third option is you could put on some sort of scarf or something over your face. Ooh. You could pretend to be a member of Cordelia's cult. Ha 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 ha. Cordelia's cult, conveniently, and I definitely didn't just think of this now, just think of this now, has a big monastery, not monastery, that's monks. Nunnery? I don't know. We're calling it a nunnery. Nunnery. In the nearby area. I don't know that much about Christians. I'm sorry. Has a big nunnery in the nearby area. And so therefore, if you pretend to be a runaway who has joined as a nun of Cordelia's cult, that would be precisely the kind of girl who would be interesting as a possible slave for the people in the secret bar. They'd for sure try and capture you. This works for you and for Pout. It doesn't work for Richard because he is a boy. Because he is boy. Boy nuns don't exist. We stan the gender binary in YA dystopias. We can code him as vaguely not in the actual book's text itself homoerotic, but he cannot be trans or cross-dresser. We're not ready for that as a civilization IRL, period. So that won't work. We can't do that. So therefore, there needs to be some other strategy for Richard. Richard is the one who's low-key trying to sell you. But again, this is all coded. It's not actually said. But he's going to wear the kinds of clothing that might just a little bit imply that he might just a little bit be a pimp of nuns / runaways. Okay. This is interesting. Okay, cool. Going onward and forward. That's how you're going to find. Once you've done that, I feel like it just won't take that long. It just won't take that long for the three of you to get caught. You go to the, you're brought to the bar / to the mob hangout. You take off once there your disguise, and you tell them that you are Grigory Gorbachev's daughter. They at first don't believe you, but then Richard tells them to watch the stream. He just risked his life to get you out of the cage. They watch it in front of you, in front of the three of you. Pout is crying because her name is Pout. And because she's still a child in this book, albeit in the next book, at age 16, she will, for all intents and purposes, to the degree that such a thing can exist in YA dystopias, be treated as an adult rather than as a child. A child, period. They believe you, but basically as soon as they do, Cordelia's nuns, not Cordelia's men, who are upstairs with Cordelia herself, but the nuns who saw you in their nun costumes, which presumably were only in that random woman's home because she herself used to be a nun. They're here with nunchucks ready to protect these random little girls who they think are perhaps new recruits that were stolen away from them by bad men. Is that how you spell nunchucks? Why is it not nunchucks? There's no way that's right. I'm just going to write it like that, but there's no way that's right. Nunchucks. The nun nunchucks. I do like the idea that the nuns have nunchucks. Remember, Grigory Gorbachev is a fascist. And as with all fascists, parentheses Pete Buttigieg, and what's his name? Beto O'Rourke. End parentheses. Grigory Gorbachev wants to take away everyone's guns. Therefore, the nuns have nunchucks. Why is it not how you spell nunchucks? I don't understand. Nunchucks? There's just no way that that's right. Whatever. Therefore, the nuns have nunchucks. Okay, cool. Okay. There's a fight between the nuns and the bad men. The nuns win, and they kill like 4 of the bad men. And 3 others escape. They're about to kill Richard as well, but you stop them from killing him and promise them that he's with you, that he's not one of the bad men. Okay. This is good. 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 Cool. Awesome. You are now in the control of the nuns. The nuns don't fully work, militarily speaking, for Cordelia, even though she's their cult leader. Because they're strictly focused on issues of women's empowerment. Parenthesis, girl bossing. And therefore, they, one, really don't like Richard. who, remember, is still in his pimp outfit. 2, they aren't big fans of this rescue mission idea for what's his name? Soot, rather. This rescue mission idea for Soot. Who cares about Soot? You are the daughter of Grigory Gorbachev, and you are the rightful leader of the entire Underworld. Obviously, you don't believe that. But she who wields the nunchucks should not be trifled with. And you are not she who has the nunchucks. The nuns have the nunchucks. Period. Okay, this is good. Now, let me think. Let me think. Now, cool. Okay, so you are now under the control of the nuns. You want to have a single nun, ideally, work with you so that if it came to it, you and Richard could probably overpower them such that you could escape on your own, / you're not being held by the nuns. You need to figure out a way of getting yourself out from being under their control for too long, or else they might register the fact that their cult leader, Cordelia Minister, is directly just 2 floors above them, and they would turn you over to Cordelia, which makes it impossible either to gain freedom for yourself or for Floof or for Soot, and obviously for Pout. So that's not ideal. So you need to figure out how to get your way out of the situation. Okay. What are some good ways to get out of the situation? Why do you need to be on your own from their perspective? Remember, they found you seemingly about to be / already having been human trafficked. This is not good, right? You're a 19-year-old and a 14-year-old girl and a guy who is also around 19 and who they've never seen before and is on no records anywhere because he's from the Surfaceworld. The Surfaceworld. That should be capitalized. I'm sorry, Google Docs. I'm sorry, not Google Docs. This is Word documents. I'm sorry, Word. I'm sorry. Everything should be capitalized. It's important. Like the cage. The cage has to be capitalized as well. Okay. Because he's from the Surfaceworld, it has to be done. That was a it has to be done joke. I don't know if you've seen that video, but it's a great video. There's a little guy and he goes, it has to be done. It's about getting grilled. Okay. Anyway. So remember, they found you seemingly about to be / already having been human trafficked. This is not good. You're a 19-year-old and a 14-year-old girl and a guy who's also around 19 and who they've never seen before and has no records anywhere. And he also, they think, is maybe a pimp. They really don't particularly want to let you go. And they're nuns. Nuns are famously overbearing and more than willing to tell people what to do. That's how nuns work. Period. So you might have to escape, but you're going to have to figure out a specific nun to escape with, right? Because you do need a nun. You need a nun. You can't have none of the nuns. You need a nun, right? You can't escape without a nun. None of the nuns is a non-option. Is a non-option, if you will. Cool. So you need to escape with a nun. Okay. You find the right nun. There's a nun your age. Her name is, I was going to say Brittany, but that's too white of a name. It can't be Brittany. Can't be Cheryl. That's too old. Could be Taylor. Let's go with Taylor. Her name is Taylor. Parentheses, Swift. She's going to be uncomfortably and scarily, from your perspective as the self-insert, more attractive than you are. Also, there will be vague but unaddressed homosexualism between the two of you as well. End of parentheses. Her name is Taylor. Okay, cool. This is good. This is good. Okay, so you found Taylor. Okay, cool. You, the three of you are brought back to the nunnery. Remember, you're still on floor 102, right? 102. You're not on 100, which is where everyone else is. You're still on 102. You're still on floor 102, and there's not lots of communication on a daily basis between people, save, of course, for none other than Grigory Gorbachev through his television channels, including, obviously, the Cage live streams, period. This is good. Now, the three of you are brought back to the nunnery. When you get there, you and Pout and Brittany, or no, it's not Brittany, and Taylor are put together in a room. They expect you to become a nun yourself. Taylor doesn't actually want to be a nun. To be a nun. She actually was a runaway and actually was trafficked in a very similar way as the way that you tried to pretend that you were. But that will obviously be left implied, not stated, because this is a YA dystopia. Bad things can happen, but other than murder, bad things happen off screen / off the actual written word of the book. Period. Cool. There's no period. I forgot my period. I'm sorry. Period. Cool. More chapstick. It has to be done. Okay. I replaced my chapstick onto the table. We're continuing on with the story. Now, Taylor doesn't actually want to be a nun. She actually was a runaway and actually was trafficked in a similar way. Therefore, she's very intimately aware of the way that the underworld functions. And she's also not a big fan of the nuns, or as an extension, even though she's never met her, even though they've never met, of Cordelia Minister. I just want to make a slight note on this note. The nuns are not all bad. Like, yeah, they're trying to keep these kids, particularly this 14-year-old child, in the nunnery. And yeah, they're trying to separate Richard from the two girls, including you. But like, from the stuff that they know, that's not entirely crazy. That seems pretty legit to do. Yes, they're a cult. They're a cult. But like, so is the Republican Party. As cults go, they're definitely better than the Republicans. Cordelia isn't entirely bad in this story. She's just complicated. Anyway, I just wanted to separate, just like flesh that out as like a sort of side thing that's going on, even though like this is an example of unreliable narrator situation. You're a huge hater of the nuns to a degree that might be a little bit silly. But is understandable from your situation. Okay, so that's going on. Okay, so I think this is going to be chapter 2. I think at this point we've been doing this for a little under 3 hours. So let's call it chapter 2, and we'll come back tomorrow and we'll have more. Bye.